Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. Today, this is great because I get to introduce you to a podcaster that is truly amazing. And I was familiarizing myself with his work. And for me, it's like, wow, I get to actually meet this person that speaks about pop culture in such a loving way, such a brilliant way. But he also speaks about so many other things. He is an award-winning podcast host, producer, and storyteller. You might know him from his critically acclaimed podcast, Wait For It, which delves into the ways we think about our bodies. Now, this is an award-winning podcast named one of the best podcasts of 2023. But I really highly recommend currently the Pop Culture Debate Club that he hosts. And they take like a pop culture topic. Say I was just listening to the Curb Your Enthusiasm Seinfeld episode, and he'll have two guests that argue brilliantly for which is like the dominant show or the dominant actor, or is it calls or text messaging? It's a really, really awesome podcast that I highly recommend. So today, our guest is the one, the only, Ronald Young Jr. Hey, Ronald.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. It was one of those great things where it's like, this is why we guest on podcasts, because I was not familiar with Pop Culture Debate Club. And then I was like, let me check this out. And then I just listened to like 3 episodes back to back, and I was like, where did the idea come from, first off?
So it's funny. It was something that Limonada and BBC came up with together. It was their idea. And they had a host at the time who had to leave for other obligations. And I had done one of their earliest debates, which was which sitcom would make it for a better friend hang, and it was between Community and the one with Jess, New Girl. It was between New Girl and Community. So I had been on there, and they said, well, maybe we could bring Ronald in as a replacement host. So I came in, and one of the things I did to change the show was I started the debates they were doing before I came along were very specific, like very, very specific, and I just broadened them out a little bit. So I came in, and our first debate was iPhone versus Android. So we wanted to get things that were like polarizing right off the top to see.
Wait. Who won iPhone versus Android? Who won?
Android.
No.
As an Android user, Android rightfully won, as I am a fair.
Well,
and
first off,
impartial,
you're an Android user. You're starting
off
the
user. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm coming straight into the chat like
wait,
that.
Wait, don't you feel if you're an Android user, then you are not the best judge of that debate?
No, I'm the perfect judge for this debate because I gave them an opportunity to tell me why Apple is an actual better phone than Android phones, and I have not heard a good reason yet. But as you can see, there's a little home cooking in some of these debates, but we're really in it to have a good time. And I do respect people that convince me. That wasn't an argument that surprised me, but you'd be surprised how many times people come in and I expect to rule one way, and they convince me to go the other way.
Wait, can you give us an example, one that you didn't expect to go that way, and then you're like, you know what, I have to rule in your favor?
We had Tyler Perry versus Spike Lee, and I thought for sure it was going to be Spike Lee. I thought for sure, and I don't know. They were talking, and the more they pointed out, I'm like, just a quick look into my ruling. It just ended up being, it's hard to argue with Tyler Perry's success. It is hard to argue with that in terms of like, who do you like better, Artur, all of that. But you say like, who's doing a better job? I'm like, for whatever reason, this dude is unstoppable, Ryan. He's unstoppable.
The dude's the dude has Meghan Markle hold up his place a couple of years ago. I mean, he has his own studio. And Spike Lee, but I will say, I watched Do the Right Thing again last year, and it gets better and better each viewing. Something I didn't necessarily understand as a kid, and now you see the ramifications of life as you get older. And it's something that everybody should revisit every decade. But you're like, that was such a self-assured piece of work for how young Spike Lee was.
Yes. And the other thing about Spike Lee is like, I feel like most of his best work was earlier in his career. Like late career Spike is like, it's a toss up, some of these things. But even late career Spike, if we talk about auteur or who's going to get an Oscar first, I think it'll be Spike, obviously, if Spike doesn't already have one.
Dude, if Tyler Perry gets an Oscar for Medea at some point, before Spike, I will riot.
We'd have to go to Mars. We'd have to just leave because there'd be nothing left for us here if that's where we're going now.
We're getting close. No, the Spike Lee, it's such a good point too, because I remember as a kid, he had a couple films after Do the Right Thing, he went to Malcolm X. He did Malcolm X with Denzel Washington, another thing that is such a huge I guess, biopic in a sense, but like what a huge subject to tackle. And I remember that summer, I was a little kid, and all of a sudden they tried to make like X, like the bat symbol. They were selling X hats, X necklaces, and you're like, this is a civil rights leader in some capacity, but you're also trying to brand him as this cool, kind of like the bat symbol. I just kept remembering, but it did make me go to the autobiography of Malcolm X. I remember, like, I remember this specifically, and that's what like kind of good art does. But I can't wait to listen to that episode. Okay, so all of a sudden. Sorry, this gets me excited when I talk to a fellow pop culture lover. When did you fall in love with pop culture?
Oh man, it had to start for me reading Disney adventure magazines in the 90s. I'd read Disney adventure magazines to find out like what the kid celebrities were doing, and then my parents would get a media guide which they came once a month, and it would be everything that was playing on television that whole month based on the cables from the cable places. And I would read that thing cover to cover, not because the blurbs were good. I just wanted to know what was happening in the movies, and those combination of things just made me want to be at the movie theater. I still remember what it felt like to sit down in a movie theater and watch a movie, or to be a part of a pop culture conversation, or to like be talking to your teachers about a television show and all of a sudden feeling like you're equals, but even though you're looking at it from different perspectives. And so I think it was around then that I was just like, yeah, I love pop culture. I could, at one point in college, I had a reputation of being able to walk through a room, see one scene of a movie and name the movie. So like, I so many movies by that point.
Oh
like,
my God.
It was great.
I mean, I grew up in a small town in Kansas, but I was the same way, where my parents would get the Sunday newspaper and they would have the TV section, and I would go to the back and they had every movie in alphabetical order, and I would cross off the ones that I saw. I would circle the ones that I want to see. And then I would be the dork that would get the Roger Ebert's Guide to Movies every year. And it was just like a kind of a world opening, because I didn't have access to like independent film back then, but I would read about independent film. And it was like this, like we're doing now. There's like a secret language of pop culture lovers. But do you notice the last like 2 decades, it's not in vogue necessarily, but there is so much conversation now that I was talking to Sam Sanders a couple weeks ago, and we were talking his concept of the monoculture is that it's not like it once was, where everybody was talking about one thing. It is so spread out. What is your view over the last decade with that?
It's certainly fractured. Like, it's fractured. It still exists, but it's certainly fractured. I mean, I'm finding when I go to the barbershop, what everyone is watching at the barbershop is different from what all of my colleagues in audio are necessarily watching. Like, I know there's going to be less people at the barbershop who are watching Severance, for instance. And I only say that to say, but like 20 years ago, that same barbershop, they were watching Lost, even though all my audio colleagues were also all watching Lost. So I think it's because people have made content that is so tailored to suit a person now, you find that it's like silos us even more. And I actually wish we would have a little bit more of the monoculture come back. There should be like a couple of things that we all watch. Like, we don't watch all of the same things. Like, I watch Nathan For You in the rehearsal. The rehearsal comes out in a couple of weeks.
I know.
For that thing to come out, man, I'm so excited. But I'm saying, like, I'm excited about that. But that's obviously not for everyone. But we all watch Severance because obviously it's meant for, or White Lotus, like that's meant for all of us. You know what I mean? Or only some.
Or the Traitors.
Or the Traitors. Yes.
The Traitors actually was one of those things that, kind of takes all of the reality shows that we know and love, and we talk about it all the time on this, but it puts a different spin on it, and it gives us permission to reappreciate or acknowledge these different iterations of reality TV, and it kind of does it in this really brilliant, campy way. And, the UK version of the Traitors, much better gameplay, but I love the little pocket that US Traitors has, and I just can't wait to see who they're going to cast next season.
Yeah, that's the fun part about it. But I feel like this season we saw the drawbacks of it because they're putting the gamers in the game, right? And I've been with it the whole time. They're putting the gamers in the game. It's fun to watch them operate. I still don't think anyone in terms of like actual gameplay played as well as Suri did in season 1, where you really tricked people into thinking that you were someone that you weren't. Whereas in these later seasons, it's like because they're picking Boston Robs and Wes Bergman from The Challenge, they're picking these folks who are like going in there with the idea of only gameplay. So it feels like it's different now. And I know that difference you're talking about between that and like the UK version, where it feels like they have to. But it's the same way that I play like Secret Hitler or Mafia or any of those games where I'm just like, I'm having fun playing a game.
Yeah.
They're doing something else now with U.S. Traitors, and I still keep watching, but they're doing something else, man. Like I don't know how to articulate it.
And it's really funny, the different factions, because you have the housewives and the Bravo celebrities, you have the gamers, you have the random British guy every season now, you have some kind of famous sibling that we make famous, you have somebody from the Bachelor, Bachelorette, which was so exciting to see Gabby Windy. Bob the drag queen now I'm a huge fan of because of the Traitors.
Even though he had a terrible game, gameplay and terrible game plan.
And I love that he still does not admit that he had terrible gameplay because he was so domineering and so dominant. I would never want to go up against him, but he made himself such a huge target.
Yeah, I like if the thing was if Boston Rob wasn't going to get him, somebody else was. Like it wasn't Boston Rob just used his momentum and basically judo tossed him out of the game. But I feel like at the way that Bob was playing, even in the back, like with the Traitors, and I feel like that was the biggest issue is everyone in the Traitors room wanted to do things one way. No one knew how to like move between or create consensus amongst the Traitors. So it was just but watching them play it now is just like, guys, y'all need to practice. Go play Mafia. You have to figure out how to play this game, man.
Well, do you ever think about that? Because we have all this pop culture to study, is that future players of Celebrity Traitors are now going to be studying these first 3 seasons. So they're either going to come in guns blazing, but in a really awkward, bad way. Kind of like if Sandoval had really done research, like Sandoval's like, no, dude, that guy's the traitor. I know it, dude.
Yes.
And it becomes performance art comedy in a sense, kind of like Nathan Fielder.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yes, that, but also the other thing that gets me is the Bachelor, the Bachelor, there's a crew that covers the Bachelor. I can't a Game of Roses. It's the podcast. They wrote a book called How to Win the Bachelor. And they talk about all the ways in which they've gamified the Bachelor, and it means how people play is all different. Because he's like, I just want to be clear, this is a game. I know y'all think it's a dating show, but it's a game. And now you're seeing what they're calling professional players now show up in the game in order to like play and try to win. And the ultimate win is not a ring. The ultimate win is to become the Bachelorette or the Bachelor for the next season. And I feel like now you're looking at Traitors and you're going to get people who are that well versed in the game and know how to play, but no one does the best strategy, which I know to be the best strategy, which is to go into the house and shut up. You don't say nothing. You don't talk to nobody. You don't make no friends. None of that stuff. You just hang out and listen to what other people are saying. You can get very far in the game.
Well, I mean, listen, Carolyn had people legitimately worried about her. Carolyn was like, "Oh, we don't really know." It almost benefits you if people really don't know what you're from. Like, I didn't watch your show. Like, I watched Survivor with Carolyn, so I knew that Carolyn.
That season. She did great that season.
Great season.
Remember that? There's no reason she should have 0 votes on that season. That was wild.
The fire making challenge at the end, which I know we all argue about the fire making challenge. I remember her and I realized I'm like, damn, she has like a lot in her that I think she is one to watch. But it almost is like this season of Traitors, it almost ruins like future gameplay for her in other shows because you can only go to that well so many times, right?
I don't think so, because I think because when she shows up, she's so disarming, because she even says like, well, I'm kooky and I'm queer and I have this personality. She's so disarming in that way that I still don't think that people sit down to say that this is a person that could be playing the game because they're over here being quirky and weird and they have a lot of tattoos. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's hard for us you have to turn off your brain, man. Like, you have to really be like, yeah, there's no way in the world this tattooed person would be good at Monopoly. And you're just like, that's all I do every weekend. Sorry for your judgment, but I'm going to crush you.
You said you're playing games of Mafia, and I keep threatening that I'm going to make friends just so I can play Mafia again. You know, like, listen, I was like, man. But do you know how you would be in those kind of pressure situations? Like, are you road tested? I mean, we hear you do multiple different podcasts, but that's behind a mic. If we get you in front of a camera, if we get you on the Traitors as like the podcast slot that I feel like eventually will happen on Traitors, would you be able to execute on camera?
Look, man, I'm either gonna go early because they don't know who I am, or I'm gonna be in the final. I'm gonna be in the final episode. I might not make it. I might not win, but I'm gonna make it all the way through. Simply because I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna talk less, which is something that I have to try to do because I love talking to people and connecting with folks. But I got it, man. I'm telling you, I played. I remember one time I played a Secret Hitler with this family, it was a game created by the folks who play game of who created the card game, Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, yeah.
And they created it in 2015, 2016 as a demonstration for how fascism actually rises and works. That's why the game exists, which is
we need this game now more than ever, folks. We need this game now more than ever.
But I played that game with this family at Thanksgiving, and I remember I went to their house and I played them. I went 5-0. Doesn't matter what team I was on, whether I was fascist or liberal. I won every single time, and it's so much so that the next year I was like, "Can we play again?" I barely got invited back to that Thanksgiving because they're like, I don't know. Ronald gets a little bit when he plays these games. I don't know. I was dating a woman who's the same way. She was like, Ronald, I become a totally different person when I play these games, and it's just like people are shocked that I'm willing to say or do the things that it takes to win. I was like, yes, because it's a game and it's fun. Like, go push it to the limit, man. Well, lie straight to their faces.
And by the way, you're permitted to do that. It's not against the law on the Traitors.
No,
you are allowed to lie. What did you think
of
Danielle's gameplay? Because I got a lot of heat because I thought it was like the game all of a sudden turned into traitor against traitor instead of traitors getting out of faithfuls. And I thought a lot of that originated sometimes a little bit from Danielle. I mean, obviously she was offended that Bob the drag queen was sent home, but I got really confused with her gameplay. And then I kind of searched myself more and I thought, well, you know what it is? I think it's because I think I would use her strategy of like almost making people feel bad for me. Like she'd be like swearing on her grandkids or like, no, I swear. I feel like I would play that game like that. And I think sometimes I have an internal self-hatred. What did you think of Danielle's gameplay?
I thought she was the worst game player I had seen in 3 seasons of that show.
People came at me for like saying that I did not think that she was good. People really came at me, but right?
I'll break it down. The thing that gets me is like, I knew she was in trouble the minute she was like, oh, Bob the drag queen went home. And like when she took it personally, I was like, she's going to lose because she did it twice. She did it with Bob the drag queen. Then she couldn't find it. She felt that dumb thing she did with Carolyn, where she says to Carolyn, well, you did say Brittany's name. You said it in here in the turret. And I'm like, why would you throw another traitor under the bus? You don't need to do that. Secondly, you have a clear alliance with you and Carolyn against Rob. You can get him out next week, but you completely missed that. It was like watching someone play chess where they could capture the queen and for some reason they don't see it and they do something else stupid that doesn't make sense. And then the final thing is she works so hard to get rid of Carolyn to get Brittany in. And I'm like, yeah, Brittany's gonna have to turn on you if she wants to win this game. I don't know why you're bringing her into the turret.
Like, I mean, it was such a ridiculous decision overall. But by the way, folks, we're talking about a show that has not been on for 3 weeks, and we're talking about it with the same passion that it was on 3 weeks ago. And that's like the sign of a good show that holds its weight, which is really exciting to have. And I think that's something that stands out to me is like it stays with me. What has stayed with you in the past year?
Oh man, Paradise on Hulu.
Dude, I just finished that last week. I binged all 8 episodes in less than a week.
I'm telling you right now, if you really want to treat yourself, start it again. Because then you realize when you start it again, you realize how much they were doing from the very beginning. Like, I mean, like, what's the Christmas one with Bruce Willis? Die Hard levels of Swiss watch precision when it comes to like everything that happens. There's a setup and a payoff in this show. And oh my God, Paradise, man, just rings the bell, man.
And I've been... See, this is almost something that I wish what was Hulu's release on this? Was it 1 a week or did they release this all at once?
It was 1 a week.
So it is interesting. We live in this day and age of White Lotus, Severance, Paradise, The Pit. Everybody, like I'm 4 episodes into The Pit.
Oh my God.
And each episode I'm falling in love with it more. And I was thinking about like, it's really refreshing to talk about television again and narrative storytelling as opposed to what I usually focus on, which is reality TV. And I said like, it's going to force reality TV to have to step up its game because I don't think the old, like what we're used to or what is good enough to slap commercials on for reality TV is good enough anymore because you have shows like Paradise. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect to fall in love with Paradise.
even though we should have, because all the elements were right there. Like
Amazing
Sterling K. Brown
actor.
is incredible. Yes, like you'll get to episode 7, and you're like, if they didn't hire him to do anything else but just this episode, it would have been worth every penny.
Dude, he's the guy. He's one of the actors that can do the one tear thing. That he has a one tear just brilliantly fall. And I don't know if that's glycerin in his eye, but like he is able to. I feel like he's trained enough that he can make a left tear happen just by sense memory. Like
he can make it go down and come back up. Like that's how talented he is. Like a retractable tear.
And by the way, James Marsden, really a fantastic president.
Yes.
He had a resurgence because of Amazon Prime's Jury Duty, where we kind of saw him in a different way. But then in Paradise, you love this dude.
He came through, man. He literally embodied the type of president as the guy you want to have a beer with, like that George W. Bush, like kind of silliness, yet somehow capable. Like he was really capturing that, like a version of that in a different way. But yeah, man, like that's the thing. The performances in Paradise, again, alone are fine, but when I started watching it again and just started picking up on so many things that they had just laid out to me, and it's a phone that rewards you for putting your phone down. If you put your phone down and don't use this as background viewing and you watch it like 100% from beginning to end, it will continuously give you more because there's so many visual things happening that end up being important to the plot later.
That just reminded me, what was the first show that, I remember mine like 14 years ago that made me put I was like, I can't legitimately look at my phone during this show. Like it's too smart for me and there's too many things happening. Do you remember your show that you're like, I can't do this?
It's weird because I only remember being this on my phone in the last 5 years or so. Okay. So for me, it would have been like, hey, typically it's like, oh, it's time to watch TV. I put my phone down. You know what I mean? That's typically what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it's only been fairly recently. But I will tell you, the phones that I like, the shows that I won't be on my phone for are like, you can't be on your phone for Severance. Like, nope. What, you're just gonna miss too much. Like, or even something like The Pit. Like The Pit, I did a thing where I watched an episode and had it on my phone, and I missed an entirely visual moment that happens when one of the doctors sees something happen, which I won't tell you because you're only on episode 4. But one of the doctors sees something happen, and I remember thinking, I wonder what her reaction was of seeing this thing happen. Little did I know it happened when I decided to check Instagram in the 2 seconds that I looked at my phone. So now it's another show that I will not be watching with my phone in my hand.
No, it's almost this great gift now to find a show that gives you the vacation from your phone. And Correct. The phone was kind of made to like have us have vacations nonstop because you could like transport yourself out of here. But now we're so trapped by the phone that you're looking for things to take you away from the phone. But mine was when I did my first watch of The Wire, and it was after all The Wire had happened. But The Wire was the first show where I was like, I cannot keep up with this. I was used to watching Housewives shows, and you can do that with your phone. Pretty much or like
the rhythm, they set it up that way. Yeah.
So Paradise, The Pit is something I'm watching like an episode a day. I'm finally fully on the Pit wagon. But are we just dealing with glorified artistic ER?
No. Okay, so, and I'm going to say this, and I feel like, don't let this let you feel weird. I'm going somewhere. So I lost my mom last May. It was tough, but I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a result. And I had a lot of thoughts about what they're doing in the hospital, how it's all working. And when I started watching The Pit, it started to feel a little bit like PTSD. Like, what am I watching here? Like, is this, but then I realized it was because there's a way in which they have nailed the accuracy of what it's actually like in an emergency room for the people working on the emergencies in a way that ER, Grey's Anatomy, Chicago Med are all really just being like, hey, these people in here, they're people just like you, and they fall in love just like you, and they get tired just like you. Whereas this one is just like, hey, these people are just like you. They are all human, but also they have to take care of you who's sitting in the waiting room packed while they're understaffed and still have to intubate somebody like while it's going. So there's a difference. It doesn't feel more artistic to me. It just feels like if you've spent any time in a hospital, that's what it is. It's very impersonal. Like you're like, thank you so much for saving my life. They're like, I did this 3 times today. I'm happy this happened for you, but I have to go do it 3 more times. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like they're taking away the parts of it that do feel artsy, like ER, and they're making it rooted in reality, which I really like. And you'll see it more the further along you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just at like an episode where one of the younger doctors lost one of his first patients, and he seems to really want, and they're like, hey, you know what? This happens. Luckily, this wasn't your fault. They keep saying, luckily, this wasn't your fault because you realize that a lot of them have created unfortunate
Yes.
deaths,
Yes.
treating patients. And that's, I think, probably the slow build of the pit. And I was, guys, just so if you don't know, it starts like 6 a.m. It's an hour each episode throughout the day. Noah Wiley, which is the obvious ER comparison, but it's interesting to see him as a rookie
and great
on ER.
casting on that part. Great casting.
Beautiful.
Because he comes across as the elder statesman, as he should.
There's gravitas.
Yes, and it's like, because my thing is like it's not connected to ER in any way. But if you told me, if he just mentioned casually, I started my career at blah 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 so and so, I'd be like, no, that makes sense because he's been doctoring for a long time. This guy.
No, like it's like training on ER, and it's like it's wild because you get to also. I love pop culture that also then makes you remember your own life. Like I remember as a kid watching ER, or the fond memories I had on Thursday nights, and like the NBC block of programming that we had, and then it would end with ER, which was like the intense part of the night after the comedy section of NBC. And then to see all of these years later, Noah Wiley not coming home because it's in Pittsburgh, it's not where ER was, but John Wells is the same producer on both. The only other thing. I've noticed this, and especially with reality shows, is they have a very minimal soundtrack, if at all, on the pit.
Yes, I noticed that. Yes, and I think that's good.
No, I think it's amazing because you realize how many shows lead you in the direction they want you to go in because of the music, and it almost covers up bad writing sometimes.
Yes, and it's hard. I feel like it's like the thing you have to say about the pit too is that it's because it's in near real time. And it's not like they don't have to compress the show for like commercials or anything. There's just some stuff, like for instance, there's an episode later in which something happens where they have to prepare for something that is about to happen to the hospital. So they all just have to prepare for what's happening. And it occurred to me that I'm like, wow, if this was like on ER, it'd be like, hey, this thing happened. And then a bunch of people would just start rushing into the hospital. But because it's in near real time, they have to be like, no, we have to gather some gauze and we have to talk to these people and make sure that you have this and call your family. And they're doing that, which kind of forces you to like slow down and be like, okay, this is happening from minute to minute, which is how like life actually is. I feel like that's the real strength of the show.
Yeah, it's the little details. It's not like 24 with Kiefer Sutherland where it takes place. And like, it's just like real, like it's minutia. Like you notice how they like check in with their name badges at the computer, all of these little details. And you have to realize how hard the choreography is to do something like that and how rehearsed that has to be, which we then also see in Netflix was releasing streaming numbers and Adolescence. I don't know if you got to see Adolescence yet.
I feel like I have to be in the mind space for it and I just haven't been yet, but it's next month.
Yeah, it's not a feel-good anything. And
that's what I thought. Thank you.
But at the same time, it's a story worth telling, but also technically it's also every episode's in one shot, and you geek out about the technical proficiency that you have to work with, like drones and cameras and people passing off. And I'm not saying like the behind the scenes stuff is even more cool than the story, because if the story didn't hold water, it wouldn't work. Anyway, sorry to geek out with you, but I'm just nerding out right now.
Oh, good, man. Are you kidding me? The one shots are the best. Go ahead.
You brought up your mom, and I was listening to the second season of Wait For It, which I highly recommend on top of Pop Culture Debate Club. And while we're here, folks, I just want to remind you, go subscribe, rate this 5 stars even before you listen to it, because that's the only way. Just because you have a podcast doesn't mean like you're a billionaire, and it doesn't mean you have an audience, but we're always trying to build an audience. So it
almost means the opposite.
Exactly. So I'm telling you, I enjoyed this. But anyways, Wait For It is so profoundly moving, and I lost my mom about 1.5 years ago, and it was really, there was, listening to your story with your mom, it was so moving and such a. I've been reminiscing about it all day, but I was thinking on the first episode of the second season, you say a year ago tomorrow you were accepting an award.
Yeah.
That's a year. I realize we're March 25th right now. March 26th last year, you were accepting an award for like best podcast.
Yeah, it's funny. So I'm going back to those. On Monday, I'm going to Chicago for that same award ceremony because we got nominated again, which is exciting. But yeah, man, that was a tough time. I remember it was very stressful because when I got to the award ceremony, or when I was preparing to go, my mom was like fussing with my family because she was like, don't tell him because he's about to go get his award, you know? So I remember being stressed and I didn't feel any relief until that Thursday because this was happening on a Monday and I think, or Tuesday, one of those. But by Thursday, she was discharged from the hospital. And by Friday, I was home to go see her. Right. So it was, man, it was really tough, like just standing there and knowing that she might not be okay while like this kind of good thing is happening for me in the moment. So it was very surreal, and it's weird that it's only been a year, man. It's weird. We're not even to the year of losing her, which is in May, which times have been messed up. Last Sunday, the 23rd, was her birthday. So just dealing with like all these little anniversaries, man, it's not fun.
Yeah. Oh my God. You have the birthday anniversary, the death anniversary.
Yeah.
You have all of these little anniversaries of this is when we put the bed in the room. This is when we and all of these things in your mind, and you get a year outside of it, and it almost gets a little more difficult after a year for some reason because it becomes even more real. You're in like a fugue state for I think a solid year. It's really interesting, but I was wondering, at what point were you like, I could share this story with people?
It was important for me to share because it was happening in the moment, and my mind was already like beginning to turn it into an episode. And it was, I mean, that's just like for me, I like to make things that are happening right now. I don't like to dip too far. I just like to stay current, you know what I mean? And all this stuff was happening, and it was a way for me to process what was all happening to me at the time. And like, it's weird because like, I didn't stop thinking about my weight or my body image just because my mom was dying, you know what I mean? And I feel like that was like an important message to give to the listeners, which to say like, yeah, this big thing is happening. Yeah. I'm still thinking about these other small things, which is something they don't like teach you in school, like how complicated your nuanced thoughts will be when you are actually grappling with loss. So it was tough. And I just felt like it needed to be heard.
No, I mean, and I definitely, I highly recommend this, but also just, I'm somebody that struggled with weight my whole life. I always call myself like the Luther Vandross of podcasting because I yo-yo, and you know, like I always like, I yo-yo, it's one of those things that I'm like, but hearing this, you know, it's like, I love how you help normalize these conversations but, you know, there's so much self-image. And I thought it was so interesting, you know, talking about in terms of getting sick and your mom losing weight, you know, like the other side of it. And like, you know, watching somebody, or you bringing up Chadwick Boseman, where, you know, I remember him getting really skinny, but thinking, oh, this must be for a role. This must be for some kind of like really art project that he's doing, and not realizing he had cancer because he kept that close to the vest. But there was a couple comments out there of people being like, this dude's too skinny. And you're like, shut up. Let people be who they are.
Yeah, it was tough. But that's like, it's a tough nuanced one, that one specifically, because the people saying this dude's too skinny theoretically were right, because like he was dying, and like that's what was happening, you know what I mean? Not that they should have said it, but like it was like in the concept of that being a thing that happens, which is like, oh, you could pass that threshold, which I talk about in that episode. But like to think about passing that threshold is tough. But there's a way in which we are like accepting and constantly evaluating each other based on what we see in front of us. Especially, man, if you like show business adjacent, you ain't got any type of heat under your name, any of that stuff. You get in front of a camera, like you're gonna be thinking about weight. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna be thinking about the weights of your colleagues, peers, all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So it would be nice if we just all showed up and said, hey, some people are fat, some people are straight size, some people are in between, and we just that's the life we actually live. But it's just not the discussions we actually have, especially when it comes to matters of entertainment, which is I think why you look at someone like Chadwick Boseman getting so closely scrutinized, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was thinking of how dark pop culture is in terms of how normalized we will talk about people's bodies in like a really negative way, or even in terms of like, I saw Tom Hanks last year, not personally, but like on some, and I was like, oh, he's looking skinny. And then I was like, this is the darkest thought ever. I was like, is this illness or is this Castaway 2? Is this him doing an Oscar-winning project, or is this illness?
And you never
how
know.
dark of a thought that is.
Yes, it is. But it's like, you really never know. And especially with Tom Hanks, someone who we've seen fluctuate our entire lives for whatever role he's in, big, small, whatever. That dude is like dedicated to the craft. So it's like, it's tricky. But I think more for us on an everyday level, it's like, Ryan, I ain't seen you in a while. I show up to your house. Like, I don't need you being like, dang, Ron, what you been in? Like, none of that, man. I'm happy to see you, man. We ain't seen each other in a while. Or if you've lost. And now the new thing is, like, because Ozempic and the GLP-1 drugs are all out there now, like, I'm seeing people, basically every single person in my life, it feels like, has lost weight. Like, it's weird.
Or they even expect, the biggest thing I hate is like, wait, why don't you just do Ozempic? Why don't you do? I'm like, what?
Correct.
I'm sorry. Let me be. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't want to pay that money yet, and I don't want to be there yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going off here. Back to Pop Culture Debate Club. What is some of the other things? I mean, like, do you have a hand in picking the topics? Like you said, you did iPhone or Android. So obviously that was a change that you made. Can you tease any upcoming episodes and topics?
Oh, man. We just did calling versus texting, which was good.
Yep. That's out now.
We did a live episode with the ladies of Text Me Back podcast, Megan Hatcher Mays and Lindy West, about you'll like this one, John Travolta versus Nicolas Cage.
So the ultimate face-off.
Correct. So we did that one. That's exciting. We did Macaulay Culkin versus
Elijah Wood.
That was a good one. And so look, I think we have binge watching versus weekly viewing, which is coming up soon. We're at least like starting to put that one on the schedule, so I'm excited about that one. But yeah, man, we like I feel like there's always I think in the future I'd love to do savory grits versus sweet grits. That's like a big fight, especially within the Black community. I'm a strong savory grits person, but I just need someone to tell me who made your cream of wheat, because that's what that is. Anyway, the point is we have a bunch of them like lined up, and we have like a spreadsheet in which I rate the ones that like I'm like, these are the good ones. Where can we get a good set of debaters to talk about this thing? So it's like we have a little bit of a process to get us there, but I really just want to like debate the stuff that if you were looking at it on a list, you're like, oh, definitely want to hear Marvel versus DC. Click play,
Well, that's the great thing, you guys. Like I said, I was going down the list, and then I was like, oh, I weirdly fall asleep with Seinfeld in a headphone every night. Like, for some reason, I'll have one AirPod in because I need constant noise, and I'll just put on a season of Seinfeld. I'm not watching the screen, and I just fall asleep to Jerry and George and Elaine and Kramer. And I know it's so weird. Like, I don't even understand why I do it, but it is something that can knock me out within like 15 minutes.
We should unpack that, but I get it.
Please, you and my therapist both. Like, no, it is so weird. But like, that was the one I saw. I was like, oh, Seinfeld versus Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's such a great entrance point. But there's so many topics that you'll find something that you love. And then I just found myself really, really digging it. But you were saying like a binge episode 1 is coming. Is there, like, I don't know. It's hard to argue that one because I love binging. I love if I love something that I can go right to another one. I love that I obsess about it. But I am realizing over the last year that it then makes it almost disposable, like toilet paper. Like, it just goes away really quickly, and then I look for the next thing to freak out about for a week. And at least with Severance and maybe The White Lotus or The Pit or Paradise, we had it spread out a little bit. So you looked forward to the day when you got to watch it, and you thought about it during the week. I mean, are you allowed to tease where you stand on this, or does it give it too much away?
No, it's a good question, because it leads me to like a point that I feel like is important, which is that, so when I watched The Office, I'm a huge fan of The Office. When I watched The Office, I was both binging and watching, because I didn't start watching The Office when it was on the air until about season 4. So in those seasons, in that time, that was back when they would release a whole collection of the DVDs.
Yep.
So I would watch on when it was on, and then I would go back, and I've been watching from the beginning. So I caught up on all of this backstory that happened. Then every time a new season would came out, I would binge watch all the things up to it and then watch it as it came out again. So now when I watch The Office, I wait for the new Superfan episodes to drop, and then I watch the whole thing from the very beginning all the way up there. Because there's something about binge watching that allows you to see everything as it played out, all of the arcs, how they worked, how it goes from week to week, all of that. And then there's something good about like being in, like, watching from week to week that feels like the anticipation. You get to watch a little bit more, all of it. But I think it depends on the show ultimately, because I'm binge watching a show that's about 22 minutes long. You know what I mean? And you can watch just like potato
Yeah.
chips, keep that going. My friend had never watched the show Lost, and he's binge watching Lost right now. And I told him, I was like, just go ahead and throw season 2 away because it is garbage.
Yeah, did he get to the second season slump yet? Because that first season, the promise of that first season, Yellow Jackets had the promise of that first season as well. I would argue that dipped off in this second season, and I haven't picked up the third yet, and I feel bad about it. But Lost, my God, that exploded things for me at the time.
It really did. And then you get to season 3, you're like, okay, it's good again. And then we won't even talk about the ending. The point is, like, there's some stuff that I want to return to and be amongst the characters. Community, I rewatched that. Arrested Development, I rewatched that because I just want to be amongst the characters with my friends. Haven't heard from y'all in a while, so I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
But then there's other stuff where it just feels like it's meant to be doled out week to week. It's meant to feel like in that way, like you're like appointment viewing for whatever reason. And then maybe you'll go back and rewatch it and binge the whole thing. But I don't think, like, for instance, Game of Thrones binge watching somehow works worse against the show in some ways. What is happening here? I'd rather wait a week to process what I just watched. Like, what's so happening now? Yeah, so it just depends on the show, I think.
So I mean, are you a big fan of Severance? I mean, where do you? I mean, is there a show out there that you don't think is due the praise that it gets?
Severance almost lost me this season because you cannot take 3 years off, Ryan, and then come back and still try to be mysterious. Like, you better get to your point here. Like, where are we going with this? And they took a long time to get me to episode 10. Where I'm like,
I love that journey. I love that journey. I even love the Patricia Arquette solo episode, the Cobell's journey to her small town.
I would rewatch the whole. I'm going to end up rewatching the whole season 2 because there were times, like especially the first couple of seasons of the episodes of the season, where I'm just like, they're messing with me and I don't like that. Like they're stringing me along. They're not revealing enough nuggets here for me to like really be into this. That being said, it's still one of the best shows on active shows on television right now in terms of cinematography, directing, acting.
And right now, you just wonder how much per episode that costs because they're working on movie budgets.
Money on Apple TV, Ryan.
No, Apple TV just announced last week that they are losing $1 billion per year. And I always joke every week, I'm like, Apple TV is literally, I think they launder money because they do not give a rip if we watch their programming unless it's Severance or Ted Lasso. Those are the two shows that they will want you to talk about. But they have shows that I always say it looks like a Tracy Morgan 30 Rock sketch where they have like posters for his movies, and you're like, that movie doesn't exist. That's like, crazy.
That's not real. No,
but Apple TV, it does exist.
Brian Tyree Henry's in a new show on Apple TV. They just did Silo on Apple TV.
Yep, like second season, right?
Yeah, and I don't think they're going past season 2. I think it might have just got canceled. That show Invasion on Apple TV. Like, there's so many of these shows. If you just wade through, you're like, how do y'all have this many canceled shows on Apple TV? There's another one people like, the Shrinking. People seem to like.
Oh yeah. The Jason, the guy from How I Met Your Mother.
Jason Segel. Yeah. So like I don't know why it's like Apple TV is littered with the bodies of like pretty good premises, but just couldn't execute for whatever reason.
But it is interesting to get some people so excited, and then that's why I sometimes hate the conglomerates that now own streaming services because, you know, Apple doesn't need our money. Like, I mean, They already have our money. So, you know, you want to do 3 years, you want to do 4 years. And I kind of blame David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, for this, because he's the one that started having like the auteur television thing where he's like, you know what? I'm going to wait 1.5 years. I'm not feeling it. I want to get the stories right. And I'm like, no. Like, that's where I go back to network television of we always come back in September. We have fall. We got to make the Entertainment Weekly fall TV preview, and we've got to go by those rules. And we don't have those rules anymore.
Well, I think the problem is because we need some people to be coming out with a show every fall. at every fall. Like whoever that is, you gonna come out with a new show every fall. Like if it's The Office, whatever the version of Abbott Elementary, I need y'all to come out with 24 new episodes every single fall. But then, and that's fine. We know we're gonna see 2 seasons of Abbott Elementary before we get to see Severance, because it worked for us back then. Like it worked for us to have, like, Lost was coming out every year, but we weren't gonna see Sopranos for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the long gaps between seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm. You know what I mean? Like we're like, I thought the show was off the air, but now he's coming with a new season. You know what I mean? Or like Atlanta. Atlanta's another show. Was like Atlanta took so long to make that it started on Thursdays where you had to watch an appointment viewing, and by the end you could just stream it on demand, so it didn't even have appointment viewing anymore. So it's like all of, I feel like there has to be a mixture of all of it, like stuff that comes out like a metronome, and I feel like that's what the gap reality TV should be filling, right? It's like, why would we have to wait for another season of Vanderpump Rules? Just put him back in there, have Scandoval do whatever he does, and let's get this back on the air, man. What are we talking about?
I was talking to one of the producers of like they're rebooting Vanderpump Rules, and I was like, oh, it's a lot of pressure, new cast, and I was like, have you encouraged everybody to cheat on each other? Like, have you had that discussion? And they were like, they already are. And I'm like, perfect. That sounds good. That
great.
That's a great start for reality television.
Let's go.
As we start winding down here a little bit, I wanted to talk really quick what you're listening to music wise.
Ooh, it's funny. I'm a
doesn't
big
have
fan
to be new. Does not have to be new.
Oh, good. Well, like recently I've started listening to I'm a big fan of Haim. Like I've seen them in concert 3 times. They just came out with a new song called Relationships. I really like that.
I love them. No, I love them. Like no. Ever since like Days Gone By, which I think is just celebrate like
Days Are Gone. Yeah.
Days Are Gone. Sorry.
Yeah, I got
is it like 10 or 15 years old now or something?
It's
something
old, man.
Wild.
Yeah, it's like I remember that I found out. I'm like, wow, and that album still, like, you can put that on right now.
So good,
still works. And like it defies eras. So yeah, I've been listening to them. I was a big fan of Sabrina Carpenter's album. I started getting
32-minute short and sweet is like a perfect pop album.
Yo, anything under 50 minutes for an album, I'm playing it. I'm playing it more than once. I'm excited. Yeah. I liked Doechii. I feel like I'm proud of Doechii's success. I don't know that her music resonates with me as much, but I'll play it. Oh, and then of course GNX, the Kendrick Lamar album. I played that over and over and over again. If you're having a rough day, turn on Dodger Blue and just let it waft over you as you like clean your house or walk around or whatever.
Wait, what happened to that conversation that Kendrick was like, that was just a warm up and there was another album that was going to be dropping? There was like a surprise Kendrick album. Do you remember this conversation right around GNX's like debut that like people were saying like, no, the metadata says that there's like another album coming that we don't know about, but that was now months ago. Do we know anything more about this?
Does Kendrick ever have to do anything ever again at this point? Like look at this man's run. Like this
man makes flare jeans cool again.
Like what happened? Like it caps. Like I've never seen anyone's run culminate in the Super Bowl in such a short and over like 1 year. So I'm like, if he comes out with another album, great. I don't think he needs to, or think that he should put out another album. I think he should do what Beyonce does and just drop it when he feels like it at this point, because like he has enough like goodwill with people off of just talking about a pedophile. Like that's what? How did you manage this?
And I mean, seriously, I know Drake. I mean, I know the conversation is really old by now with Drake and Kendrick, but at the same time, like Drake going to his Australian tour and coming out with like gunshots with smoke coming out of them, like, oh, I got shot, but I'm still alive. And it's like, it was just like, I mean, what a weird way to like harm your legacy, to like bark up a tree that you should have never barked up. And then to see like behind the scenes campaign. I mean, everybody talks about Lively Baldoni, but people should be talking about like Drake and Kendrick and the behind the scenes smear campaigns of like, you go on Twitter, which I try not to do anymore, but you go on and people being like, Drake was right all along. This Kendrick is, and I'm like, what? How can you, like, Kendrick is like Radiohead. Kendrick is like, there is no, I find it interesting. There can't be an argument made, yet there are still arguments being made that Drake is the true winner.
You know what gets me about that is like, okay, so somebody pointed out, they talked about Ja Rule. Do you remember the rapper Ja Rule?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I always like to check.
One of the heads of Fire Festival, yeah.
Correct.
His claim to fame.
Ja Rule was once just for whatever reason, 50 Cent just decided that Ja Rule was corny. And after that, nothing Ja Rule did ever again quite hit the same, including Festival. Nothing ever he did. Even to this day, if Ja Rule puts out something, you were going to roll your eyes a little bit inside. Just, I'm not really interested. Maybe you can put on his old music. Even if you put on his old music and you're dancing into it in your house, for some reason, we're not pumping Ja Rule hits like we used to. And all it took was one guy just implying that he was corny. And I think that right now, Drake is in that window right now where there's a lot of young people at parties yelling A minor and calling this guy corny. And I feel like he has maybe about, and the last album he put out wasn't very good. He has maybe about 3 to 6 months. And I'm talking reality. I'm not talking about the stands that are online saying that Drake won, all of that stuff. I'm talking about in the public eye. Even those of us who like don't believe that Drake is a pedophile or did any of that, it's hard for us to like turn on his music and not be like, yeah, but you kind of is a little corny now. Like, I don't know. This dude really stomped all over you.
I still will hold up that Take Care is like a near perfect album. I love Take Care, but he has had a string of things that are very disposable. But I'm probably not the, his target demographic in terms of age or any of that, but like it is interesting the people that are still arguing for him. And I'm like, man, it's hard to argue when you're dealing with an actual artist. Like, I feel like Drake is a businessman. Drake is somebody that is looking after his money in a very poor way this past year, but you cannot win over an artist.
No, especially an artist who like is so attached to LA, to Compton, to like who has like a whole coast on his back. And I know Drake has the Toronto thing, but he's also been very hard to nail down in terms of like how he changes his style so often. Whereas Kendrick's just like Compton's on my back, out of here, Compton, West Side, here we go. So and there's a bunch of West Coast people that just believe in that. And there's a lot of us who have never been a part of the West Coast in that way that are still like, hey man, Compton all day, Bompton, let's do it. What we talking about? You know what I mean?
Well, it's because no offense to like Flavor Flav or Snoop Dogg, but in this day and age, like decades after they initially became popular, I could legitimately see Flavor Flav being on the cast of the Traitors next season.
No, 100%.
I don't think Kendrick 20 years from now, 30 years from now would ever consider it. But you're like, maybe if things continue to go wrong, could Drake be on the Traitors 20 years from now? Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if Ja Rule would do it, which he would, given the opportunity, he would probably be on that show. Then I'm looking at Drake like, Drake, if you don't put out Take Care 2 or the Carter 6 or something, come on, man. Like, you got the clock is ticking. You don't need to do any more concept albums with Playboy Cardi or any of that.
No, you just go by your own.
Yes,
right.
Please.
Yeah. Anyways,
yes.
Ronald Young Jr., I could talk to you forever, and I think that's probably why you're so popular. Good luck at the award ceremony in a couple of days. I want to let people know, Pop Culture Debate Club. Go check this out, but also go dig into this dude's other shows. Wait for it. It is beautiful. It's spelled WEIGHT. You've also heard him on Pop Culture Happy Hour, Solvable. I mean, so many amazing projects you've been involved in. But what else is coming up? How can we support you?
Follow me on Instagram. Go to It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. That is where I break most of the news that happens about myself. Or you can listen to any of the podcasts that he mentioned. I also have one other one, which Ryan, honestly, I think you would like. It's called Leaving the Theater. And all I do is review movies as I'm walking out of the theater. So it's very short. It's typically under 20 minutes every time. You can listen to it as you're going.
Wait, what's the last movie you did?
I'm late on an episode, but I'm about to put out Snow White, and then next week I have Death of a Unicorn, which honestly, Death of a Unicorn, really liked it.
Wow.
Really
okay. I thought you were about to say you really did, because that's Paul Rudd, and it's
surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. You should check it out.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you've got a new fan in me. I just followed you on Instagram. Do not feel the need to follow me back, because I just post like memes about reality shows. So you will be highly disappointed. But Ronald Young Jr., dude, I hope to talk to you again, man. This was great.
I'm around all the time. Thanks for having me, Ryan. This has been great.